And we are back with another Monday preview. Guys, we have Liz and Christine back with us from Double Defense to talk all things New York Rangers. Guys, thanks so much for coming back.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the soon-to-be therapy session about our hockey team because we need it.
I mean,
we all go through those periods of time.
I think when we talked last time, we had a differential between where your team was and where our team was, and yeah, I think we're a lot closer this time, so we can relate, we can empathize together.
Yeah, things happen. First and foremost, we got to talk about, because I feel like the Rangers had a lot more drama, or at least was more of a topic of conversation prior to even the start of the season, with getting JT Miller, him being named captain, and we got the whole no BS stuff at the beginning of the year. What were your guys' thoughts? What are your feelings on the captain, on the BS, on just all of that?
I'll jump in here because I think I think Christine and I had some differing opinions. I was and I think Christine was too, actually very anti the Chris Kreider trade. We are big Kreider fans here on Double Defense, and losing him I thought was awful. I mean, there was a lot of drama kind of surrounding it, and obviously I think it was great. I mean, it was great for him. It's worked out so well for him and the Ducks this year that he's now not part of the team. But to me, he was such a quintessential captain leader. So when he was traded, and then the conversation went to who should be the next captain. To me, Trocheck was like the obvious choice, and they didn't go that direction. They had JT Miller, who was coming out of Vancouver. There were issues surrounding him leaving anyway. I don't know. It felt like an incongruous decision to me, and I feel like it has not worked out. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Christine, what are your thoughts?
Well, we were hopeful when we started, right? I think we still are, kind of, sort of.
Optimist.
Yeah, I mean, we're really hopeful on the road. We got to figure out what's going on at home. And as far as JT Miller goes, look, I think Trocheck's picking up the Kreider void, and I'm watching like how he, and it. We'll have to expand on this later, Liz, on another episode where, when Trocheck came in, he just kind of made himself the third person on the ice, when Kreider and Mika would do their hugs and everything. And now Trocheck's taken over the Kreider role as the unofficial captain. I think the moral support in the team cheerleader. When it goes to picking a captain, it's not up to us. I know what we want, and who we thought. I think we were in agreement that we would kind of have preferred Trocheck, but it's not us. I mean, they make the decision in the locker room, and it's the team that chooses. So for whatever reason, the team chose Miller, and I definitely don't feel like he's lived up to the expectations we want to see. Even as recently as, post game this last episode, where I was disappointed in his response. I mean, he's just like, hey, we all get out there and do our best, and this team play a little bit better. I'm like, no, they played very well, and you did not. So
it doesn't also the captain does not have to be the best player on the ice. I'm a firm believer about that, but we're not seeing him step up in that sort of leadership voice, and that could be. Yeah, that could be maybe. I don't know if that's a coaching thing, because don't forget the Rangers also have a brand new coach. So I know there's a lot of moving parts this year. There's been a tremendous amount of change. There's obviously going to be growing pains that come along with that. But to watch this team perform so baffling, and truly it's like a baffling season when they have the best record on the road. I think at least they had it for a long time. I don't know if they currently still have it, but they're doing exceptionally well on the road and can't put together a win at MSG to save their lives. It's absolutely bizarre. So you have to kind of go, okay, what is happening here, and where is this coming from?
Yeah, and don't forget Trocheck was out for So again, it just adds to this mystery. I think you guys have seen it kind of with your with the dynamics of player. When one player's out and your team's losing, that I think when we started to win, when we won at home, we had Trocheck back, but we also brought up Gabe Perreault, and so I'm like, oh, the reinforcements have arrived, and it worked. Yeah. And it was short-lived. But it was something, right? And so And that's where the hope, is we're still having troubles at home, and we were having trouble. We couldn't even, not forget when we couldn't score at home, so, we've kind of generally talked about that because there's a whole weirdness in the NHL, in my opinion. There's a lot of weird injuries, a lot of big injuries. We were talking about this earlier, that are hitting teams. I haven't really, deep dived into it, but there's advantages to some of these teams in the schedules and who we're playing that can make a break. If we're playing a healthy team and we lose, and then their next game is playing a team that's got like Boston, where we won, and yeah, we played well, but also they have a lot of injuries, so they're taking a big hit. And if some of these teams have a schedule where they're playing teams with with these injuries, or the goalies are out, we got 2 teams with 2 goalies out right now. It's the Canucks and the Ducks now, right? And one of the Ducks backup, AHL team goalies is injured too. So they're really limited on resources right now. So, so it's just a weird, dynamic for things. And kind of Liz it's baffling to watch and not understand like why we can't be consistent in how we're playing, and wondering, is it the schedule? Is it the coach? It's always jury. So, yeah. I mean, you got to blame him for everything all the time, and we were also talking about this earlier too. It's like we are seeing this rise or not rise, but like really it's the kids that have been doing really a good job. These are the kids, you got Bedard, you got all these guys that are at the top of the list now. And we're seeing the Rangers kind of scrambling to kind of keep the young kids coming up, and kind of recycling them, to keep them fresh. And also they're limited as to how long they can keep them up there. But we're seeing, I think a little bit more ice time for some of our younger guys too, or our newer guys. And they're the ones doing the work, kind of again to what Liz said. We're not seeing the big guys stepping up consistently. We can say we saw like 2 really good goals the other day with Mika, but there has to be, it can't just be one every 4th, 5th game. There has to be some level of consistency.
And I think also with the injuries, like one of the things we've talked about a lot this season has been like the bizarre schedule. And I know the Blackhawks have a bizarre schedule kind of coming up with this road trip. There's a lot of games being crammed in before the Olympic break. And I think the Rangers had played more games than any other team in the NHL. So, they're stuffing these games back to back to back, and it has to be exhausting for these guys. So,
Wait, say that again. We pay a lot of money. What?
It doesn't, it's not an excuse, but all of the teams are dealing with this. I'm just taking a look at the Blackhawks schedule. This road trip is bananas that they're going to go on. Do you have 2 games against the Kings coming up back to back?
Yeah, but they're both in California, so it's
is that because of the Olympics? Like they're trying to.
No, it's because Gary Bettman loves us more than other teams.
No, he loves us.
I don't think I've ever seen that I went and I refreshed my screen twice to make sure it wasn't a glitch. How strange is that?
I haven't seen that very often, but you're right on with the schedule. Me and Hockey Princess talked about it a little bit. As far as the Blackhawks, 30% of their games were against teams on their second night of back-to-backs.
Yeah,
that's very advantageous for a team.
And say that again.
Yep, that's where we go.
The tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I'm thinking. It's right here that we talked about offline. I just think it's great.
And I mean, it's helpful for the Hawks to go out there and play back to back because that's one less travel to if you can cut out one trip all the way out west.
Sure.
At a different time, I mean, it's perfect. That's a win. So it is rigged. No.
I mean, there's something too. The Rangers have, we're up like over 2 games, maybe 3 on some people, and some of the other teams too. So why is it that we're like, we have more games than anybody else right now, So, I mean, it is the schedule is more cramped up due to the Olympic schedule. However, with them adding more games next season, we're going to have to kind of, keep an eye on that. I mean, next year's going to be just maybe a little less, but still you know, we're going to see how, how they stretch it out and how it works out next year, because then that'll be what we're going to be seeing, right? With the extended games next year. So, they are talking that some of these games are what's causing the injuries on some of these people, especially with the goalies. I remember, like, there's just an extraordinary amount of goalies that are out, and and watching last night, at the end of the game, that their goalie went out, and so and then they were talking about, like, one of their AHL goalies is out too. So, I was looking at the injuries, first, I think there's like 7 goalies that are out now, but 2 teams have 2. And that's just like, if these guys, like, and they played Igor, and I keep telling Liz, I'm like, I don't know why I'm anxious, because we got Quick out, although he's day to day now, what I read today, which is good. And they keep calling up other people, but it puts a lot of pressure on Igor, and he's not even safe from the criticism of stuff, so
Sounds like they should call Chicago, because we have too many goaltenders. we have an abundance.
It's just getting more fun. Call them. Where's your farm team? Do you know?
Rockford.
Oh, so
So
it's
like
an easy call.
Like an hour or 2 just straight west. So really not bad whatsoever.
But you guys don't have a whole lot of injuries now, right? I mean, you guys are pretty fresh.
We're good right now. I think the main one right now that's out is Nick Foligno, out with broken hand.
You guys are doing, how do you feel you guys are doing this year so far? With it being the Bedard show, it's just Bedard. I mean, when you hear it, yesterday I was watching the game, it's just Bedard. He got more minutes than anybody else. It seems like that's what he's getting. So, and he's holding his own. I see him like a lot like Jack Hughes. It's kind of, steamrolling through it. And I want to say a pog huck, but if he gets up in the front and he's going to take the shots and stuff, that's what the young kids are doing, and it's working for them.
Yeah, I mean, the team's probably exceeded expectations a little bit, but as I like to tell everybody now, that kid that everybody jumped off the couch about during the draft reveal party, he's arrived. The training helped out this summer, and he's a complete player. So, and again, it's what you expect out of a number 1 pick to begin with. I mean,
right.
I guess we could segue that to your number 1 pick. I mean,
I was going to say not our number 1 pick. The Rangers have not been great on the development side, to say the least.
Which one?
Lafreniere. I mean, because when he came out, he was supposed to be one of the best, and it just never has completely clicked, it seems like. I mean, not that he's a bad player, but
yeah, the expectations aren't there. Maybe he needs to shave his head also, because I think that's the only thing that's getting the Rangers going these days. Because we had Panarin, who was having a terrible season, who shaved his head for the second time. He did that, I think, in the offseason a couple of years ago, and it seemed to help. I mean, I say that in jest, but I say that also because I obviously we're not privy to what goes on behind the scenes, but to just watch what's happened to the Rangers and the younger players that they've just allowed to go nowhere is very frustrating. And you have to go, okay, is this a bigger issue than the coaching staff? And to me, it seems like it is. I think there's, a lot of blame and fingers being pointed toward, the front office not being able to manage these guys effectively, but they keep making the decisions. So as fans, we have to bear the brunt of it. And it's really sad. It's just kind of sad to see it, because you don't want to watch these young guys waste like the best years, their best hockey playing years, and not have success from it. Lafreniere is not a bad player. Something's not clicking, and it's so hard to tell what that is, if it's confidence or coaching or what. Really hard.
It's funny how I don't know if you guys see it with your team or or interviews with the teams are playing, but we're getting that a lot with the Rangers. It's like, well, we're building up confidence. So it's a big word in the interviews as to like when they're going to score or when we don't do, we just need to build up more confidence. And these are from the seasoned players, not from, not from the young players or the new players. Are you guys hearing that too? Because like when I hear that, I'm like, I don't even know what level, like what they're looking for in that, because I think with us at least, and I've kind of said this for years. Let's go back 2 years to the playoffs, where we were doing so well. And then, the young guys at fourth line, they were doing so well, but you know what? They weren't given the opportunity to play more. They kept giving the ice time to the Kreider-Mika line. And it didn't work and it wasn't enough. And we didn't go further. And we thought that, that they might see that last year, and we didn't see it at all. Mm-hmm. And now when they bring in Sullivan and they bring Quinn back too, because I think Quinn was around when they had the youngest team in the league and kind of started building that up. Because, again, that comes from like the Golden Knights, like when they kind of formed, they were young, they shot up to the top miraculously in their first season. And then everybody started to kind of follow this trend of kind of getting, and that was when we lost Henrik, they traded Zook, they just broke everything up and said, we're just going to go with these younger players. And kind of what you were saying with Bedard, it's like, okay, he trained, he developed, and now he's kind of where he's at, where we're going to see him produce. And I think that's what we've been missing is, or what everyone complains about is producing. Although every time someone talks bad about someone, they do better. So like she's talking bad about Keandre, like then he would do well.
That happens to us all the time.
Yeah, and I think occasionally our team has been the whole just with the Hawks, they're just not expected much. So it's all about, our catchphrases are trust the process. We're needing to get, to different points. But yeah, I'd give a big eye roll to the, it's a confidence issue. I'm like, well, no, it's either you're playing well or you're not. Yeah. I understand having the juju where things might come a little easier, but from a fan standpoint, I never liked the, it's confidence, things aren't, it's just the breaks. We're doing everything right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my beer is now up to $35. So it would be nice if you could have a little more confidence on the ice. Yes. Thank you.
or buy me a beer.
Oh, good grief.
But then you look at like Kreider and Trouba. Like Kreider and Trouba got traded over to the Ducks, a year and a half ago, and like they're having a great season. Trouba was almost being laughed off the ice the year that he was captain for the Rangers. Like he was struggling so much, and obviously under new leadership with a different mentality, he's killing it. He is having an absolutely great season. Not that he's like a super young player, he's not, but what is it about their style that's letting him succeed? Versus another player under a different system. I'm very curious about that. I don't know specifically what the systems look like in each, but it just seems like, I don't know, the Ducks they seem like they're having more fun these days.
And they're doing the same plays. Look, we're watching Kreider do the same plays that he was doing with the Rangers.
Totally. Same playbook.
That's what we went when we were invited to the Ducks game a couple weeks ago. When we went, we were sitting there and like, why is this fun? Why is it so well? They're smiling. We saw the wives. All the wives are bonded. I'm like, everyone's really happy, and and now they have a new. I don't know if you saw, like they have a new like exit thing where they kind of walk off hand in hand. Or Kreider's got this new thing. And so it's we were kind of talking about that too, because I think with the Rangers and maybe with other teams too, which is interesting to see the comparisons, if there's any, is for me more it's consistency or lack of. Keep the lines. They keep wanting to mix stuff up, and as a result, again, we're not scoring. We just this game against Tampa, I don't know if you saw, but we had the lowest like shots on goal in 30 years or something crazy, so I don't even care if they score, just shoot. It was pathetic, actually.
Yeah.
So you got to, you got to start with shooting and work your way up to scoring, but be consistent. So instead of trying to, and that's where I've always seen the success in, let's say, the Florida teams. I've watched them not do last minute trades in the season. They've kept the team together. They've kept consistency, and they've succeeded. In that. So it's like you kind of compare it to the teams that work, and we're not talking about them right now because I know they're at the bottom. But there's injuries and stuff. But yeah, you got to see why are the other teams working and they're consistently, up in the top, and they have the same players. Then the players are doing the same moves and they're making the same shots and it's working every time, So
yeah, because for me that brings up another player, and that's K'Andre Miller, who's looked like he's fitting in pretty well in Carolina. Also,
I don't think so.
Well, we beat them, so that's okay. I don't care. That was one of our wins. We'll take it.
I was not a K'Andre Miller fan when he was on the Rangers, and I know he's been injured quite a bit this year, so I think he's just come back. Hey, good for him. If he's able to break out of whatever bad voodoo is happening on the Rangers right now, and he can find himself on another team and really start playing to the top of his ability, then good for him. Krusty, you said it very well. I think you were talking before about expectations, and the Rangers, you were saying the Blackhawks don't have those expectations, so it's easy to kind of surpass them. I think what happened with the Rangers going from President's Cup winners to not making the playoffs to a new coach and new captain and all of this in a market like New York in the centennial year, and I think it's your guys' centennial as well, there's so much pressure for these guys. So I imagine that part of what's happening right now is sort of a breakdown of that pressure, especially seeing what's happening when they can win on the road. Maybe there's less pressure there than being able to win at Madison Square Garden when there's so much, tension in the air. You can feel it.
I just from a distance, and that's got to be for the players. I'm not giving them cop-outs or excuses. That's got to be some constant crazy questions as far as the home record. I mean, just from the beginning with the no goals for a while to how you can play so well on the road. And
I know, what's the difference?
I mean, has there been a response that you guys have been like, well, maybe that's it? Or do you think, it's just the pressure?
The only explanation that I have heard this year, I've heard one where I'm like, maybe this is plausible, is that because it's Madison Square Garden and the schedule is so crazy because of how many, different events that they're happening, they have to do a lot of their like warm-ups and their practices up in Westchester County, which is decently far. So some of these guys are commuting quite far in order to come in for the games. So that is kind of the only one where you're like, maybe there's some kind of like weird thing where they're psyching themselves up between warm up and game, or something's happening during that time period. Instead of, having an arena that's dedicated for you, you can come in early, you can skate, that's the only explanation that I've heard that maybe speaks to this, other than just bad juju in the air,
or the fact that they all have kids. So, and when they're home, they're with the family and the kids. When they're on the road, there's really nothing else to distract them. From it's just eat, sleep, hockey, repeat, literally. And again, there's an Oilers TikTok or reel going around of like a day in the travel life, and it really depicts exactly kind of what they go through. And it was exhausting just watching it. So I don't know how they do it, and you feel like at home it'd be easier, but but when they're at home, they're with their families. I'm sure there's, things they got to do. And, if they have a rare day off and it's a little bit more taxing on their minds and their bodies too. So we're seeing some shifts because we've got a couple players out, and there's moving back and forth to kind of keep the players fresh, and and we're hoping that when they're there's excitement when they come up, because I think they want to perform in show 2, and we have Berard coming up, and I think he over tried things and ended up kind of costing us some penalties and doing things. And so we'll continue to see that rotation.
I hope they bring him up for the Blackhawks game, because it'll just confuse the announcers. The rotating slate of announcers that the Rangers seem to have this year.
Oh, it won't. I mean, it will confuse them, but we get that from everybody. The amount of times like national broadcasters will call Connor Berard, and I'm like, my guy, read the sheet.
We had that
with the Kings guy, LaFerriere.
Yeah, I was listening to some. They were two old men. I don't even know what team it was. It was some Canadian. They were two old, and they kept calling LaFerriere, and I was like, who is this? I'm like, is this someone on their team? And then I realized it was an error, and that because they mispronounced Panarin's name or something, and I was dying. And then I think I posted it, and I love it because some dude was like, yeah, I think that's maybe how they pronounce it in French. I'm like, no, it's wrong. It's wrong. Like, come on. No. It's my favorite thing to do. It's
just wrong.
And own people. I'm like, no. It's pronounced Lafreniere and Laferriere, So yeah.
It is always the worst when it's like the national announcers, because you could tell they've read about one team but never the other one. So I always find them very biased. They're never Rangers fans. They're always a fan of like whatever other team they're playing.
Yeah, I love those names because Sam used to get confused about it, and then Liz always had to try to rhyme something with the names, to try to make an annual poem.
I do. I need to. Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm hoping for like a turnaround or a wake up call or something. Everyone's kind of saying send the Rangers back on the road, just stay on the road, and see how we do, because we have a tendency, and I don't know if you guys have this too, but we definitely have a tendency to lose to lower seeded teams, and then people are like, how can you lose to the last place team and then you can beat the first place team? I always say, well, first of all the teams are good in their own way. You got to just kind of keep watching out, all the real minute details for each team to see really why Chicago. We talked about this, I think, when we were with you guys last year, and it's like, why is Chicago at the bottom? Like, they've got Bedard's still there and he's growing, and we got good players on the team. And the same thing with the Ducks. But now the Ducks, have a whole new dynamic, and we're seeing the difference that it can make.
And we just have a fantastic goaltender now. It just makes all of our problems go away.
See? And we have two, but it doesn't help us. I'm like, okay. Oh, no. Although, I will say, I'm getting frustrated because, I'm afraid that Igor's going to get hurt, but he's playing a lot like Quick does. Quick has his own style. I've been watching Quick for years, through the Kings, and now over in, and as older as he is, he'll drive you nuts. He comes out too far, he goes down too fast, but he can make the plays. And I think, when I'm watching some of these games now with Igor, I think he starts to do the same thing. And I'm like, no. And so I yell a lot at the TV.
Those guys could stand on their heads. And I mean, we have watched our goaltenders have amazing games that the Rangers still lose. And that is so heartbreaking for those goaltenders. It's really just sad to see, they'll let in one goal. I think a couple of times, I think Quick gave up one goal and they still lose. It's just exceptional.
Yeah. You know what I think we need? I think we need feisty Shesty, because when he starts windmilling people, things happen.
I mean, you know what? We had a good season after the Trouba helmet throw. So I think maybe we do need, maybe that's something that JT Miller should be doing a little bit more of, is where's that anger? Adam Fox just got hurt in the last game. He's on the injured list now. He'll miss a month or 10 games or whatever it is. Nobody did anything on the ice. You just took out our best defenseman. How do you not respond to that? Where is that passion? And you can't just have the coach yelling at people. There needs to be actual response on the ice. So I feel like that's where the Rangers are really lacking right now. But that comes from JT Miller, I think.
Yeah,
that's the Toronto energy.
Yeah, and that's the enforcer, kind of energy that we lost with Truba, because Truba would have done that, and and would have come back and stuff. I guess that's a weakness I see too. I've always kind of compared it East Coast, West Coast to, like, I always felt like East Coast plays a little bit more strategically, and West Coast plays a little more defensively, more physical. And we do with some of the players, and we have the bigger players now. But yeah, like to Liz's point too, you want to see more aggressive plays. We're seeing a lot of games where some people are getting taken out, because they're playing hard, and we also have a lot of these teams on the East Coast rush the net. Florida does it, Boston does it. There's where you just know it's coming, so it's like you got to up that, that physicality of the game too, and check more. We have weak checks, so I'm like, I want to see big Truba checks, and that's definitely missed, for that kind of thing. And that was a big talk along, on social media too, with that game after he got taken out, that there, we're seeing like kind of that honor retaliation kind of thing that happens in other teams to say, don't mess, with our player, or what you did was wrong. And we're not seeing that level too. I agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, we need to see, we need more Rempe activity. It doesn't have to be Rempe, but we need that, like that level of energy, kind of back to the, to the home ice, to kind of drum up that crowd.
Well, it sounds like, that pack mentality, protect the pack. And yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than we saw it it's been an improvement in the Blackhawks this year.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years, anytime anything was done, people just skate around, and that's not how a team comes together. That's for sure.
They're all skating by like dinner Friday.
Yeah. Not good.
I got you all. Because wasn't there a video where like Kreider's behind the net when somebody's just speaking Russian? I didn't realize he was fluent in 5 languages, messing around with people and having fun. So that was cute too. Just do something, So, Thanksgiving was like the first milestone. I think the end of the year, which is coming up really fast. It's usually that break, that you kind of have to be in a position. Everything's really close for everything, which again is crazy, and it's with the exception of Colorado, who is well, Matthew said it on our show, but I think it still holds true. They're the only team that's really playing good. So everybody else is either injured or not playing as expected or not playing well, and you have one team at the entire league that's actually just playing well, and it shows. One regulation loss, they're on some crazy record, and they have the speed and the shot skill, that we saw from a couple years ago, when they won. So they're fun to see. I'm glad I don't play them, that our team doesn't play them a lot, and we won't see them till the end.
It's kind of good for the Western Conference though, because you only have to really worry about like one team taking everybody else out. So everyone will be exhausted by the time you guys get to play them. It's not a bad thing for the West. And I was just looking at the stats. So in terms of points, the lowest team in the West has 20 points. It's the Predators. The Avalanche have 42. So you have a 22-point difference. The East is much closer. The lowest team has 24, and the highest, which is the Sabres, highest team is 34 points with the Lightning. So it's only 10 points. Everything is really close in the East. So as frustrating a season as it's been for the Rangers, I think it's been frustrating for everybody.
I know. Look, we won on Friday, and I'm like, and I think I did the post where I'm like, refresh to see how many points we jumped up. And I'm like, oh, we're in a playoff spot. And then you sneeze, and then we're back out, because somebody else wins. We're 2 games ahead. I'm like, so, but reality is, it's just, it just takes a few wins to kind of, level set everybody and kind of keep that, streak. I'd like to see us win, more than 2-3 games in a row without, and if we lose, at least lose close, at least put the effort in, to do that. I mean, again, Saturday we only barely got 10 shots,
And we were talking about the stat where, like, by Thanksgiving, 75% of the teams that are in a playoff position will stay in a playoff position. So for the Blackhawks, that's good because I think you guys are wild card position at this point. So that's awesome. For the Rangers, we are not. And they interviewed Mike Sullivan, the coach, and they asked him about it. And it was funny because Christine and I have debated this stat about, being locked in by Thanksgiving. And they asked him, Mike Sullivan, about it. He's like, I don't believe that. He's like, that's not true. Like, of course he doesn't believe it.
I think it could be. I'm a statistician myself. I love the numbers, and I'm going to prop up data-driven hockey for doing some really good stats on a pretty almost daily basis, which I love to see. And the Thanksgiving kind of marks 25% of the season being done. So you really should kind of know where you're at, know how you're playing. The confidence should be there by this time, right?
You should be smiling more.
It's like, should we move you down to the HL and move somebody else up? If only it worked that way, would be nicer. So, but this year, again, an extraordinary amount of injuries, started off the season with, high profile players, from significant teams. I think that have cost them like their status, and where they're at. And some of the other teams that have no injuries are kind of prevailing because of that. And it also shows you how much a team relies on these players. I mean, when Trocheck came back, I mean, that was the whole thing. It was like, are we, is it that they rely on Trocheck to do these things? And that's what they're waiting for. And so, and when you start seeing team winning, when McDavid comes back, or, when he was whatever, you're seeing who they're really relying on. And then, when someone else gets injured. Now with Fox out, people are already like, the season's over. We're done. We're doomed just because Fox is out. And he may not be out as long as we think. So fingers crossed on that. But, still, this is also between now and January, this is where we tend to get the bigger injuries, I think in the past. So it makes me a little bit more anxious because some of these guys are just playing hard and a little dirty. Saying the other day, I'm like, I feel that all these guys took a course on how to dive and get the refs to blame the Rangers, because I'm like, and what was that one? Wasn't there one on your, like, yesterday?
There's been many. Last week, there were like 3.
They're like, the guys, who was skating got a penalty, and then they called it off. Like, you never see them call back that penalty. I mean, you do sometimes. It's really rare. But that was like, he's like, there was like 3 feet between me and him. I know I was watching that, and I thought it was funny. We don't get those breaks. You do. We do not. So we just watch it on, you see everybody watching on the big screen going, what the heck? He hit himself in the face with a stick, and now we're getting the penalty. It's the story of our lives. So it's definitely a ref's game, and goes into more conspiracy theories that we might have. But you have to overcome all of that, and then you what game was it that they had the 3 callbacks? Was it your game? It was the Kings game. It was the Kings game, I think. Oh, yeah, it was the Kings game. They had 3 goals called back in the first 4 minutes of the game.
Wow.
Which is insane. It was like the fastest, and that was fun to watch too. So a lot of weirdness going on that we, it's hard for us to track everything, so it's not just us. And so again, when you get tired of all this stuff, just go to PWJ. It's more fun. They have more fun rules. I mean, they've got jailbreaks. They, and they make it more exciting, without the stress. So you can watch those guys too. So I'm always pushing that, because it's fun and free, by the way, too. So you got to kind of enjoy that while we're pushing through the misery of our team, because kind of a backwards season. It's odd, it's wonky, and if you could predict right now, 2 teams that are gonna be besides Colorado that are going to surely sit there in a playoff position. Could you do it? I couldn't. Not on the east side.
Well, the East, I would guarantee that Carolina will make the playoffs.
Rod will make it happen by his sheer will.
I mean, you're right. After that, I mean, even Jersey, you're worried about them staying healthy and everything else. So,
about them going to a dinner party.
They can't even stand up. They keep falling. The statistics keep coming out. I just posted on our story. Like someone's counting how many times they fall on the ice, you know, and they're it's something like 451. We saw it because they played when we went to the Ducks games. They were playing the Devils, and they were falling a lot. I don't want that. Like at least they're not keeping those stats about us, you know? Right? Someone is somewhere, I'm sure. So we don't want that. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. So, you know, right now you can only say like, right, we're saying Colorado, we're saying North Carolina, or, you know, yeah, I don't think I can call really anything right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only other one, if I had to, and because we talk about the big three in the Central all the time on our show, with being Colorado, Dallas, and Winnipeg, would be absolutely shocked if Dallas is out. Maybe not as high as, you know, people expected, but I don't think that they're going to fall completely out of playoff contention.
Yeah. And Winnipeg should make the playoffs and then just not progress from there, but they're used to that.
It's going to be Colorado's turn because they're going to be too hot at the beginning of this season. They're going to do
they're going to start falling.
Yeah. Wedgwood is going to become Hellebuck come April. They're just going to flip.
I mean, we're still rooting for them. I'm still rooting for them for last year. You know, like come on, yeah. You know, I think it's just a crazy upside down kind of season. But that's what it's all about. You know, everyone's got to get through their own personal, you know, emotional issues with their confidence and their injuries. We're going to talk a lot about confidence. I mean, we're going to be sure. Like, you know, if you make it a drinking game, let's do it. You know, every time someone says that they have to build confidence in the post interview, just drink.
Yes.
Let's drink. Let's see who gets drunk first.
I think we should play this.
From the safety of our own homes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because it's not going to go far. So and again, it's been a lot of, you know, look, if you're watching the stats from or the news from all the other teams, someone's hitting a milestone. You know, there's also pressure as we quickly get through the season because we're blinking and we're almost through with this year, as this is now December. There's still the big talks of some of these high profile players with their contracts being up. And, you know, could that be hindering some of their, emotional effort, you know, that they're doing when it's all around? I know a lot of these guys just try to stay off of, different social media platforms but you just don't know how they're being hit with different things, and they've got their agents. They're probably still negotiating. Teams are probably trying to save, you know, if they want. There's so much going on behind the scenes too that adds to a lot of things we don't think about or know about.
Oh, for sure. Christine, thank you so much for coming on. It was very, very fun. It should be a very, very fun matchup. And continuing on with our Monday preview this week, guys, we have 2 more games to talk about. We have the St. Louis Blues matchup, and then finally Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings. First up with the St. Louis Blues. At the time of recording, guys, they are 7th out of 8th in the Central Division. The only one that is lower than them is the Nashville Predators that we talked about a little bit ago. But right now they're sitting 7th out of 8th. Their last 10 are 4-3-3. Their injured reserve is a little lengthy and a little all over the place just in terms of the duration that some guys are out for St. Louis. You know, you've got Torrey Krug, who was announced during the offseason that he was going to be out for the entire season. You have Zach Dean on a week-to-week, Jordan Kyrou on a day-to-day, Jimmy Snuggerud on a week-to-week, Tepchenko on a day-to-day, and then Nathan Walker, as we talked about during our regular episode last week, is out for a bit, and he is listed as month-to-month. They do have a back-to-back. St. Louis has a back-to-back. They're playing Nashville on Thursday away at the Bridgestone Arena, and then they will be playing Friday in St. Louis at home. So they do have a back-to-back. We do not, because we play Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So the St. Louis game will be a back-to-back for the Blues, but not for us. Goaltending tandem for the St. Louis Blues is Jordan Bennington and Joel Hofer. Some notable forwards, Jordan Kyrou, Rob Tobness, and Dalibor Dvorsky. Defensemen, you've got Parayko, you've got Falcon, you've got Broberg. There is no easy wins within the NHL. We talk about this because, you know, no matter how your team is performing, you are in the NHL, so you are pretty gosh darn good. So there are no easy wins, but this is definitely a team that the Chicago Blackhawks have beaten in the past. And so this should be a game that they should win. They had a really nice matchup against them earlier in the season and beat them 8-3. So this should be a should win for the boys, but we will see. Jumping to Saturday is the second part of our back-to-back. So we've got Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Saturday, we're at home. It's the return of Showtime with the Detroit Red Wings. And what can you not love about that? Detroit, at the time of recording, is sitting 4th out of 8th in the Atlantic, and their last 10 are 4-4-2. They're really don't have a ton of guys out on injured reserve right now. You've got Shai Buium and Mason Appleton out on day-to-days. So who knows? One or both might be back in the lineup by Saturday. It's a lot of time. Detroit doesn't have a back-to-back. We are on the second leg of a back-to-back, but at least it's not too much of a distance. It's just being in St. Louis on Friday, and then we're back at home in Chicago on Saturday. But they do not have a back-to-back. They're Thursday and Saturday, so they have a day in between. Goaltending tandem for the Detroit Red Wings is Gibson and Talbot, same as it was previously when we talked with the Undrafted podcast a couple of weeks ago during the last time that the boys matched up. Notable forward, you have Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, Lucas Raymond, you have Finney, and like I said, the return of Showtime back to the United Center. Defensemen, you have Seider, Sandin, Pelika, and Edvinsson. Again, this is the team that we have won against this year. This is definitely a can win, and we should win. We should win every game if it's up to me. But this is definitely a matchup that we have, come out on top in the past this year. So we should be able to win. It would be really nice to get a couple of additional points this week. But we will see. So like I said, we have the New York Rangers on Wednesday. You have the St. Louis Blues on Friday. And then you have the Detroit Red Wings on Saturday. It should be a very, very fun week. And that is all. And we will talk to you guys next week.